references to the site, just look around you. You see the ruins of a sacrificial area, okay? But unlike the one we saw yesterday at Armageddon, this one actually takes us back to the time when this land was part of Israel. Okay, so this is essentially an Israelite sacrificial area. Technically, we are somewhere along the northern borders of the land that had been allotted to the tribe of Naphtali. That was one of the northern tribes, the tribes of Israel. But we read in the Bible that during the late Judges period, which is just a little over 3,000 years ago, members of the tribe of Dan decided to relocate. And so, just a kind of a reminder, I'm pretty sure that you're all familiar with the subject. Even prior to the arrival of the ancient Hebrew tribes from Egypt into the Promised Land, God had allotted each and every tribe of Israel a territory, a piece of land to possess. All but one. You remember who were not allotted a land? Levites. They were supposed to be scattered among the other tribes, but the Danites too were allotted a piece of land. Now, where were they supposed to settle? Which part of the land? South, center, north?
Obviously, we're north.
Center. The airport, right? Tel Aviv, the Dan County, is named after them. Okay, so they were right beside the tribe of Judah to the northwest. That's a long way from their inheritance. And what we read in the Bible is that as time went by, they had a hard time capturing much of their land for a very good reason. By the time Joshua came in here, that land had already been occupied by a huge foe to be reckoned with, and their name was the Philistines. Remember, the Philistines were mighty. We'll talk more about them later on. But the Danites found it increasingly difficult to cope with those enemies. And of course, the story of Samson, who was a member of that tribe, and his failure in his personal life also marked the failure of his tribesmen to inherit all of their territory. Long story short, the Danites decide to take matters into their own hands. And already in the book of Judges, we read about an expedition team of Danites that are sent out to look for a better land for their tribesmen, contrary to the plan of God for them. And I think that the story of Dan, the broader story, is a terrible reminder as to what happens when you take matters into your own hands, contrary to the plan of God for you. And of course, you can see it on a large scale, tribe, but also individually, right, many times. So I'm going to read the account out of Judges chapter 18. I'll read verse 27 and following. So there's a bunch of Danites. They traverse the land, and then they find a guy there, and he has a priest. They take the priest, they hire him essentially, and this is the background for this. So verse 27 following reads, the Danites, took what Micah had made and his priest, and went on to Laish against the people at peace and secure. So the name was previously known as Laish, the name of this place, prior to the arrival of the Danites here. Against the people at peace and secure, they attacked them with a sword and burned down their city. There was no one to secure them because they lived a long way from Sidon and had no relationship with anyone else. The city was in the valley near Beth Rehob. So we hear about this community here of Canaanites, that are secure, and all of a sudden the Danites show up and capture their place. The Danites rebuilt the city and settled there. They named it Dan after their ancestor Dan, who was born into Israel, though the city used to be called Laish. There, the Danites set up for themselves the idol, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Moses, and his sons were priests for the tribe of Dan until the time of the captivity of the land. They continued to use the idol Micah had made all the time the house of God was in Shiloh. So what do the Danites do? First of all, they relocate physically. They move out of their inheritance to look for a better land for themselves. And I'm pretty sure that you can appreciate, the beauty of this area. However, the question that we ought to be asking ourselves, was that the plan of God for them? The answer is no. Okay? But that's not all. What do? They set up their own idol. Instead of going to the house of God, the true house of God at Shiloh at the time, they come here to worship the one, presumably God Jehovah, in this new center that they build for themselves. Okay? Comfort religion. How many times do you see people that are kind of doing their own thing, right? Creating their own religion, creating their own God and worshiping their own God, their own special way. This is the Danites. And of course we know that this ended very, very badly for the Danites, because sometime later, the northern kingdom is split in two. And the first king of Israel, the northern kingdom, that is, who rebelled against the south, Judea, and the descendants of the house of David, he decides to take it one step further. This is what he reads. 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 26 reads, Jeroboam the first thought to himself, the kingdom will now likely revert to the house of David if these people go up to offer sacrifices at the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem. They will again give their allegiance to their lord Rehoboam, king of Judah. They will kill me and return to King Rehoboam. So this Jeroboam the first just rebelled against Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. He breaks away, right, taking 10 tribes of the north with him. And then he thinks to himself, surely if these people go back to Jerusalem, to the temple of Solomon, they will turn back on me and they will kill me, right? So what does he decide to do? After seeking advice, the king made 2 golden calves. He said to the people, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, O Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. One he set up in Bethel, which is further south, not far from Jerusalem, and the other in Dan. In fact, probably right behind where you're sitting, right there. Okay? And this thing became a sin. The people came to worship the one at Bethel and went as far as Dan to worship the other. Jeroboam built shrines on high places and appointed priests from all sorts of people, even though they were not Levites. He instituted a festival on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the festival held in Judah, and offered sacrifices on the altar. This he did in Bethel, sacrificing to the calves he had made. And at Bethel, he also installed priests at the high places he had made. On the 15th day of the 8th month, a month of his own choosing, he offered sacrifices on the altar he had built at Bethel. So he instituted the festival for the Israelites and went up to the altar to make offerings.